This is episode 13 of Objectively Biased. This is Wilder Adams alongside John Tortorelli. And our first guest of the show, Romain Davis. And today we have a lot of cool things to talk about. So the NBA trade deadline's coming up. So of course we're going to talk about the obvious, the De'Aaron Fox ideas, the Julius Randle ideas. And there's some other names that we can also get involved. Obviously, Jimmy Butler, and I guess we can touch in on a pretty big trade yesterday, a trade involving Utah and LA. So LA acquired Drew Eubanks yesterday. So obviously that's league changing, and we have to talk
80's
about
been
that.
80's been asking for a center. He finally got
a center, everybody. So LA is going crazy right now, and obviously, if I'm sure a lot of you guys know, Luka Doncic, and maybe the most shocking trade in sports history, goes to the LA Lakers. And I think that's a good way to start out. So, Romain, you go first. How are you doing, man?
Last night I watched Bam hit his third game winner of his career.
Yes, sir.
I was good. I went to bed straight after that. I felt feeling a little sick. So I'm like, you know what? That made me feel good. Let me go to bed. I wake up this morning. I see a couple notifications. I'm like, I'm getting Sentinel. There's no way. I go through, see the Bleacher Report notifications. Like, how many picks did they get for this? This is insane. One? And I go down the list, and it's just like, it just still didn't make sense. And I saw the statement from the Mavs GM about defense winning championships and Luka's conditioning and injury proneness. I'm just like, you just traded for AD. I don't know what you talk about injury proneness for in the first place. But the more I looked at it, none of it made sense. It just kept making zero sense to me. You're trading a 25-year-old generational star, even if he was out of shape. He's out of shape, averaging 31 to 11 and 10. You just traded him to the Lakers with his idol in LeBron, probably gonna put him on that $1 million a year regime to probably get his body right too, in the first place. And you just guaranteed a 50-point triple-double on your head for the rest of your life, as long as he's in the league.
Every time.
I just don't understand what was the line of thinking of this. I had to make like a list of just the butterfly effect of things that happen. Kyrie has a player option next summer. Like, what are we doing here? Clay, PJ, Kyrie, Gafford all wanted to be Dallas because of Luka. Now he's gone. Like, it's none of this makes sense. None of this stuff makes sense to me. I was looking at like the last couple of trades. Gobert got you 4. Or Gobert got you 5 picks. DeJounte Murray got you 4. Mikal Bridges got you 4. I don't care if you're trading for AD. Luka only getting you 1 is egregious.
Listen,
Right, John, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Last night, I went out with my friends, and I'm like, this is one of those Saturday nights where I can unwind and let loose and just be myself. And I'm out, and I look at my phone, and I see the notification, and I'm telling my friends, like, this is fake. Like, there's no way that they would generally trade Luka Doncic for Anthony Davis, who's 31 years old, and a single first-round pick. And then as the night went on, and as I woke up this morning, I forgot about the trade, and then I woke up and said, this is the dumbest trade in NBA history. There are certain players that you do not trade, and Luka Doncic is one of them, unequivocally. For the Mavericks to trade him on such short notice, without great reason, a year coming off on the heels of a finals berth, for a 31-year-old Anthony Davis and a single first-round pick, is organizational malpractice. You're getting the older player by 7 years, 6 years. He's 31. Luka just turned 25, literally like a couple weeks ago, or I think he might be turning soon.
Turning 26.
You're getting the more injury-prone player, turning 26. And then lastly, you're swapping a established number 1 on a contender for a number 2. And as Romain just highlighted, we've seen DeJounte Murray get traded for 4 first-round picks. Rudy Gobert, who is years older with far more limitations in a playoff environment, get traded for a litany of first-round picks. But on the Mavericks side of things with Nico Harrison, this is the worst possible return because the Lakers package, while it's giving you Anthony Davis, is mediocre at best. There's no draft compensation. There's a single first-round pick. If you have Luka Doncic in 2029, that pick's not going to be in the lottery. So you're basically swapping Anthony Davis for Luka Doncic. In my mind, to me, there is zero purpose. There is not even a silver lining in this trade. This is the dumbest move I've ever seen. And it's on par with the Red Sox trading and selling Babe Ruth to the Yankees in 1919. And you know what? For that, the Mavericks don't deserve anything. The same way the Red Sox for years were tortured and haunted by selling Babe Ruth, the Mavericks deserve much the same. Because
John,
you had not just a championship number one, you had a generational talent. This is a player that you build a championship team around. This is the type of guy who, when it's all said and done, I think will easily be a top 50 player of all time. And maybe he can get that top 25 in the right situation. And now you're gift wrapping him to the Lakers, a team that doesn't have to pay him $350 million because guess what? As Romain highlighted before the show, now that they made this deal, they don't have that flexibility given that supermax of however much it was a year.
extra
So
100 million.
they don't have a discount.
They don't have to give him the extra 100 million at all now because
So
he's no longer eligible for the supermax since he got traded.
now you're
So they got him on a discount.
now you're gift wrapping him to a rival in your same conference, and that championship window you once had solely because of Luka's brilliance, that's evaporated. This team's a first round exit. I don't care what you say. I don't care how you look at the Western Conference. This team, it had something with Luka. It had the depth, it had the versatility, but without him, this team's going nowhere.
What makes it even worse is that there in 2028, 80's 35, Kyrie's 36. Guess who owns that 2028 Mavs pick? I want y'all to guess.
The Thunder.
OKC.
Yep.
That's a hard guess.
If someone says guess who owns it, it's always OKC. It's like
OKC or Houston. OKC or Houston every single time.
There's like a 70% chance it's the Thunder.
Yeah. No, it's really interesting because my first thought is what happened in Dallas? Like what happened? Because on the surface, you can say, look, they just traded Luka Doncic. Maybe they didn't want to pay him in 1 year. Maybe there's something there. Dallas going to Los Angeles and making this happen directly. No market really. No open race to get Luka Doncic. They went to Los Angeles and said, hey, what do you guys think of Anthony Davis? And they're like, hell no, we're not trading Anthony Davis. Would you want Luka Doncic? Hey, he'll land in Dallas in 4 hours. Like that's basically what happened.
No, they gave them 48 hours. They gave them 2 days to think it over.
I know. No, I'm joking, but that's literally what seemed to transpire. So what happened? Luka Doncic doesn't request a trade. A 25-year-old superstar, obviously, international superstar, and you just move him to LA. Something happened. Something very, I'm not even sure we're ever going to hear what happened to lead to this, but then their GM Nico goes and says defense wins championships like 45 minutes after the trade. Why did he go straight to the media immediately after the trade when the trade isn't technically approved yet? That felt personal. My first thought is that felt personal. So something happened in Dallas between Luka and the organization. Maybe somebody did something, but like John said, you don't trade a 25-year-old megastar unless there's a trade request. And I'm not one of those people who's obsessed with first-round picks. Like I saw somebody on Twitter say today that Mikal Bridges got traded for 4 first-round picks and Luka won. No shit, Sherlock. Anthony Davis was in the trade. So I'm not going to go all in on the draft pick thing, but yeah, there should have been more draft pick compensation. But yeah, it's the weirdest trade in NBA history, and we can start a conversation because I'm definitely lower on Luka than the consensus, but even me, I'll tell you, you still don't make this trade at age 25 unless something major happened. Something majorly happened.
You put it perfectly because there is no logical explanation for making this move in this stretch of the season in a time like this where a year ago you were 3 wins away from winning a championship. That's without Luka having a Kyrie playing well in that series. That's with a rookie Derek Lively being their 3rd best player. That's with a inconsistent shooting cast, with a bench that in that stretch of the playoffs was really up and down. In spite of all of that, Luka, who is still hobbled, gave you a chance in the first place. But I think to really build off your point, Wilder, I understand that Anthony Davis was in the package, and that explains why you're not getting a handful of first-round picks. But I look at it this way. If you're trading the 3rd best player in the NBA, a megastar for a guy who's 31 years old and has 2 to 3 more years, I would guess, of elite level play, who even then has injury issues, you need to sweeten that deal to give me at least something that's worth my time. The Lakers didn't do that. And now the Lakers, to their credit, I know we've been focusing the Mavericks because this is, once again, the worst thing I've ever seen. But on the Lakers side of things, this was a franchise with a 40-year-old LeBron James and an aging Anthony Davis, no future to see. There was really nothing to look forward to post-LeBron. And the Mavericks just gave them the best life preserver in NBA history. They said, here you go. I mean, do you want Kyrie Irving too? We'll give you both for free. I mean, in my mind, it's the craziest way for a team to rebound and save their future because the Lakers invested Brandon Ingram, Josh Hart, Lonzo Ball, a litany of first-round picks and seconds for Anthony Davis in 2019. They got championship, and of course, now they have what is, to me, a top 3 player for the next decade. To get yourself that in this moment, in a time where the Lakers this year, I think most of us would agree they're a playoff team, but not really a team we look at. They can win multiple playoff series. Maybe they win one. Now that changes pretty quickly. You have Luka Doncic and also Reeves in that backcourt, and now you're reuniting Luka with DFS. I feel like the Lakers have really built a supporting cast the last couple of years by making good moves in the margins, and this deal by Rob Pelinka and his brass is brilliant. I mean, they're lucky. They're lucky the Mavericks didn't have the logic and the foresight to test the waters with other teams to see a better package. The Mavericks, I mean, it was like Nico Harrison's a Laker fan generating his own 2K package and posting that on Twitter. That's what this felt like. But good on the Lakers for seeing a trade that you cannot decline and then capitalizing because this team that they've built, they're a threat this year. In the same way the Mavericks last year made a few deadline moves, and next thing you know, they're in the NBA Finals. I could easily see the Lakers this year definitely win a playoff series and making some noise in this Western Conference.
The thing is that I feel like the only reason they took 48 hours is because the Lakers are like, they're not serious. There's no way. We can't. Let's not do this too quick. Let's not try to jump at this before they pull out a report that we're trying to trade AD and then we disgruntled the entire roster. Let's not do it. I feel like they thought they weren't serious at first. And like, oh, they really are about this in the first. And it gets me because now it's not even the Lakers just have so many different ways to move about this now because you didn't give up that much draft capital. You got rid of Hood Hachifino. That's it. You got back Maxi. You got back general bench pieces that can play for you too in Maxi Kleber and Markieff Morris. You got back players that can actually fill in certain roles. This makes Austin Reeves kind of redundant in that lineup, so that makes him available now most likely. Sure. Of course, you're gonna need a big now, and right now that gives you. They have now 2 tradable first-round picks. They have Austin Reeves. So they're having a flexibility to go out and find another big, a better big than Jackson Hayes at the 5. And at that point, now you're looking at LeBron, who's no longer going to have to be a main ball handler. So now he can actually go back to playing relatively okay defense because when he's been locked, even at 40, he's still one of the better perimeter defenders when he has to play when he decides to play defense, when he's not has the offensive roles like completely on top of him. So he can generally still be a pretty good defender. Luka last year was forced to play the most off-ball of his career. He shot 38% from 3 on catch and shoot threes last year. LeBron has played off-ball with Wade in Miami for 4 years straight and was one of the best off-ball players in the damn league.
Yeah.
I know people are going to be worried about how the ball handling things are going to go with LeBron and Luka, but I have no worries that those 2 great players can make that shit work. So now you give the Lakers the ability to not only run out and go get a center to really solidify this team. You gave them 2 bench pieces so their bench isn't gutted anymore. They still have draft capital. And now you just disgruntled the entire team because Klay only signed there because of Luka. So now the entire the team you built around Luka doesn't have the player that you build around anymore.
Yeah.
So that team's most likely going to be a first, second round exit if they get lucky enough to stay in the playoff race in the West. If they get lucky enough to stay in the playoff, I'll not be a play-in team.
Right.
Kyrie has a player option next summer, so he's most likely Kyrie's gone from this, especially with them right now. With losing Kyrie, most likely a lot of those players aren't staying. And before Atlanta gift wrapped Luka to you in the first place, because we have to realize they weren't in the position to draft Luka. Atlanta just gift wrapped him and gave it to him. They were drafting Willie Cauley-Stein and Dennis Smith Jr. before this. The Mavs have been constant poverty. They got lucky enough in 2011 that Dirk and that team went crazy to win a championship. Because immediately after that season, they traded Tyson Chandler and they went back into mediocrity. So unless they've always been one of the worst poverty franchises. They haven't been a free agency destination. They've gotten extremely lucky with what they've been able to get. And now you just gave that what was probably your next 10 years away for 3 years, maybe of Anthony Davis of consistent first round exits. Even if you didn't believe Luka is your future, even if you didn't believe that Luka can win your championship.
Then who can? If Luke is not on that list, then how many players are two?
Understandable,
Victor,
but
3 years and
I don't know. I don't know how many. I don't
we
know
could
how
start
many,
a Luka Doncic conversation right now if you guys want to, because I told you guys I'm not right now as bullish on Luka as the average person. But just to stir it quickly to the Dallas Mavericks, you guys are like, everybody's going to hate this. I mean, look, Kyrie Irving's going to want out now. Holy shit. Like Daniel Gafford, what's going to happen there? Are we sure they are that in love with Luka Doncic as a teammate? Let's just be honest. I think the bigs love how he can set him up on the pick and roll. But the last couple of years, you watch the games. How often in the NBA Finals, Luka Doncic misses a defensive rotation, which is every other possession, and then he yells at a teammate about it? How often did that happen? Dallas did a move that seems too bizarre to comprehend unless there's a lot of factors that we're not comprehending. Mm-hmm. Are we sure Kyrie Irving is not going to love a growing usage and even more less of a defensive burden on his back? Because they traded Dorian Finney-Smith. They made moves where, I mean, PJ Washington's their best point of attack defender, and Anthony Davis is a big, but more rim protection, more of a safety net. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying it's a smart deal. I'm not saying it's the right deal. I'm not even saying players are happy about it. Are we that sure, though, players are so attached to this where they're like, okay, Dallas, F you, this is what happens? I think there's a middle ground here, especially from the players on Dallas, because Luka Doncic had like a 40 usage every year. Yep. And wasn't defending this energy drink right here. So right. I don't think the players are going to be as mad as we are trying to position it, because we all recognize how good Luka Doncic is.
The issue with it is not necessarily about being in love with Luka. Part of it is, if you have guys there that went there for Luka specifically, like Clay, because he knew he was going to get open opportunities and things like that. So you can look at it that way, but it's not even necessarily that. It's the fact that there's players that went there because they wanted to win now, and they saw an opportunity to win now with a generational talent. You remove that generational talent, your one first round exit will let you know this team's ceiling right now. You got rid of all your draft compensation to build the team you had around Luka in the first place. So now you don't have any way to necessarily build around a Luka a Kyrie and AD team anyway. Unless you're gonna remove your entire young core, because you got rid of Josh Green already. So now you're gonna look to get rid of Jaden Hardy. You're not gonna get a lot of if you're gonna try to build around this team. You're gonna have to look at get rid of Quentin Grimes if you want to try to build around this team. And that's gonna take time. And this malpractice lets me know that Nico Harrison is god awful as a
job.
I don't trust him. I don't trust him to make those moves in the first place. I don't trust him.
He can't even do a pitch to Steph.
Exactly. To build a good team around, I don't trust him to be able to build a contending team. So it's not even just losing Luka. It's the fact that those players are there because they wanted to win now, and now there's no longer opportunity to win now. And all of them have a way to get out. AD, in a couple years, AD has 3 years left on that contract. He can, if he wants to force his way out, he probably could. Kyrie has 1 year left. It's not even about Luka not even playing deep. You can look at it in the same way of the Houston situation with James Harden, in the sense that once James Harden was out, that entire core fell apart. So it's not even just that it's not the fact, and James Harden wasn't defending, wasn't doing any of those things in the first place. So it's not just losing James Harden. The players didn't get any happier that you lost James Harden, because now I have way more offensive responsibility here that I was not used to. Right now,
but that Houston team literally built a team of James Harden and maybe a complimentary guard and not one person who can dribble. That was literally.
Yeah. I'm talking about with Chris Paul. I'm even talking about with Chris Paul.
They couldn't dribble. They couldn't dribble. I mean, yeah, James Harden in a heliocentric offense, that was like the only system in which players like the PJ Tuckers of the world could really do anything, because nobody on the team could dribble. I mean, the Mavericks have a lot of guys who could dribble the basketball. You mentioned Jaden Hardy. There's still Spencer Dinwiddie. There's still Kyrie Irving. I think PJ Washington has more on-ball stuff than we give him credit for. Right. So I agree that it was the wrong move. I agree it takes them out of any hope of contending because I don't think Kyrie Irving or Anthony Davis are Batman. But when you still look at this roster from the outside point of view, if they mesh quickly, it's still a very well-balanced roster. They go
I agree
9
with
deep.
that.
They have arguably the best interior defensive depth in the NBA. I still think Kyrie Irving, with risen responsibility, can give you over 25. Anthony Davis still could give you over 25. I mean, in the Western Conference, when I only trust really one team right now, and then secondarily Denver, I still don't think this takes Dallas out of the conversation. And on the Lakers end, like the Lakers, I think are going to be the longer transition than Dallas.
Yeah.
And that's okay because Dallas for the Lakers, it's about transitioning to a brand new era. They weren't winning any more titles with LeBron James or Anthony Davis. So instead, you get Luka Doncic and say, we'll figure it out. And I think this is a good way to start this.
On the Lakers side of things, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. You're good.
On the Lakers side of things, right? They get Luka. LeBron's right next to him. There's no big man depth, obviously. Are we not consider? Is it unfair to say, look, now there's an outside chance LeBron James to the Warriors might, come back?
If the thought is to just complete why now we don't know the thought process for either team. If the thought process for the Lakers right now is, hey yo, okay, we're transitioning to a whole new period. LeBron's the next guy to go. I'm still okay with that too. Those are fantastic moves. If the opportunity is not win now with LeBron, that's an opportunity right now too, because you still have the draft capital and you still have the assets to make moves to build around this roster if you need to. Nobody's saying you got to win this year, but the way LeBron's looking, you just dropped a 33-point triple-double last night. He can give you another year or two of all NBA ball. He can give you enough, and so that should give you enough time to be able to build a roster that can necessarily still be content, because I'm pretty sure they could contend this year. The issue I have with Dallas specifically is, one, the fact that Luka's been out for a while already, and Kyrie still ain't giving you over 25. Kyrie still ain't giving you over 25 right now. Yeah. I've been watching specifically that decline for a couple players. Kyrie's one of them where you can slowly watch it, where the production is dropping little by little. Mm-hmm. Anthony Davis, you don't know if he's healthy. You don't know if he's going to stay healthy even in the playoffs, because that's been an issue for the past 5 years. Yes. So you don't. One, you can be, for all of Luka's issues, one thing, he's been able to stay healthy enough to play in the playoffs and give you all NBA production in the playoffs every single time he's been there. At least that. Anthony Davis, you cannot say the same thing at all. No. So right now, even for the Mavericks, you're just throwing caution to the wind at this point by getting the even more injury-prone player and just hoping and praying to God that he stays healthy.
Listen.
Because he gets moved to the 4 now with Danny Gafford at the 5. But even when he was the 4 with the Lakers in 2020, if they didn't get that gigantic break, he would have missed half the season because he was already getting injured before COVID.
Yeah.
So it doesn't even matter what position he plays for. He's just made of glass. So right now, with at least Lakers have the most for sure success with this, while the Mavs, I give them at most 25% that this works out where you get past the first round at least. I give them that, a quarter chance that they get past the first round.
Yeah, to build off that point, Luka Doncic just had a lot of injuries here and there that he's played through. He's played 60 games every single year in his career up until the season. Anthony Davis has played 60 games one time since 2020. A lot of people are going to say, well, I think you're underestimating AD. He's a top 10 player in the world. He's one of the premier two-way players. This year, he's missed just 5 games, and it was 3 before these last 2 days. He was very healthy last season, played 76 games, and that was the 1 year where he played 60. And I understand that AD is still a high-end premier number 2. You want to know what he's not? A number 1. When he was in New Orleans, he was not number 1. He was, you could say, a number 1, but he wasn't going to elevate you into contention as number 1. So he was never really a true top 5 player. And my gripe is that I agree, James, this defense could be special with Derek Lively at the 5 and AD at the 4. But offensively, we saw this last year in the playoffs. Kyrie is not good enough or capable enough to lead this offense anywhere past the first round. And I felt like that was especially clear when he had to benefit from playing off of Luka and the advantages he generated. Now that Kyrie is the focal point of their offense, I have a hard time seeing this as anything more than a 45-win team. And I understand AD, a brilliant number 2, but him and Kyrie together are just 2 number 2s. And Kyrie may be more suited as number 3 at this point in his career. And my biggest gripe, it goes beyond just the injuries. Anthony Davis's game to me is not going to age gracefully. He's going to be turning 32 years old. I look at his prime having 2 years, maybe 3. Do I expect AD to be an All-NBA player at 35? No, I don't. Do I expect Luka Doncic to be an All-NBA player in 7 years? Yeah, I do. 10 years, pretty confident he can be. Now, I don't know if Luka plays as long as a guy like LeBron, but you're basically swapping 2 to 3 years of Anthony Davis for a decade of Luka.
Yeah.
And that, to me, is the crux of why this is the worst trade I've ever seen. Not because AD is overrated. I think he's awesome. But the foresight, the timing, the ideology of this trade, it doesn't exist.
Question about this. Why? So let's just say everything reported is true. The Mavericks went to the Lakers. Why did Dallas go to the Lakers on this?
Because Nico Harrison sucks.
It's sure
Gotta be an inside job.
Something happened. Either it's an inside job or Luka Doncic was aware of this potential scenario, and he's like, "Look, if you ever trade me, just trade me to the Lakers."
Right. Does Nico Harrison have any clutch affiliations by any chance?
No. The thing about Nico Harrison is that he's shown propensity to whenever he believes something and he has control of anything, he will go outright to do it. What he believes Steph Curry, he believed that Steph Curry wasn't the star people thought he was. So he half-assed the presentation for Nike. That's why they lost Steph. So when the reports come out that Luka was pushing 270, they don't believe he's the future anymore, and they believe defense wins championships. I fully believe that that's his line. I fully believe that was his only line of thinking. I fully believe that.
I think it was personal. I really do. I think even if that's their line of thinking, making a trade of this magnitude on a Saturday night and your first instinct is go to the media and make comments about it, such as defense wins championships, keyword, after they just went to the championship, there was something very personal going on between something in the organization, including the front office, and Luka Doncic. I can't come up with any other explanation. You can hate Luka Doncic to death, and you still don't trade the guy unless something personal is happening. So my thinking is something was happening in the organization that we might never know, because not everything comes out depending on the style of an organization. So, like I said, this is so bizarre, too bizarre to be true for there not to be bizarre given circumstances. So, yeah, it is probably the most shocking and one of the worst trades I've ever seen. It's one of those, I have a little more optimism in the short term about Dallas than you guys do, but I also recognize you traded 7 to 8 years of prime Luka for maybe 2 of Anthony Davis, right, and Kyrie Irving and Anthony Davis, even though I think that defense is going to be awesome, you're not getting past the second round with this.
Can I ask you, do you think they're going to win a playoff series like the next 5 years?
I think they could, yeah.
Will they? In this Western Conference?
Will they? I mean, in this Western Conference, when you're playing, like, who are the 2 and 3 seeds? Houston and Memphis. I mean, they're beatable.
Not with this team.
They are. I don't know, man. In both of those series, you know who has the best player? Yeah. Dallas.
Yeah.
You know what's crazy? You know what's crazy right now? They're in the play-in, and they'd have to play Minnesota.
Now Luka does.
And then
without Luka,
they're gonna
play Minnesota without Luka.
They have the right to play OKC or the Houston.
Exactly. Yeah, you win the right. You win the right to play. You win the right to play OKC most likely.
So, Minnesota is the biggest winner of this trade, by the way, because they have no Luka Doncic and Dallas cooking them.
Exactly.
Phoenix too.
It restores a lot of the power pendulum in the Western Conference, where teams like the Mavericks and not the Mavericks, teams like the T-Wolves, the Nuggets, and the Thunder. The Thunder lost this Maverick team in 6 games last year. It makes their lives a lot easier now. There's one less top dog because
the thing about it is that it's just like I just don't understand the thought process of this long term or short term. I just don't, because you look at the way your team is built. You look how much you struggled this year without Luka in the lineup. I just don't understand the thought process of, okay, we get AD to be able to stay in the playoff picture. You have to hope that AD stays healthy for the rest of the year. That probably isn't going to happen. So you have to hope. What's the worst thing that could happen is AD gets hurt, and then you just traded Luka, and you miss the playoffs.
Yeah, if you have a rewind of 2021, 2022, where AD was playing 40 and 36 games, you then practically traded Luka for an injury-riddled, aging, declining center. I mean, that at that point, you're getting nothing from this deal. But I mean, this is the last thought I have. The Mavericks are going to spend a long time, possibly the rest of my lifetime, without having a player as good as Luka. And the entire time, we're going to continue saying that they need a number one and a player who can elevate the offense, as Luka is in Los Angeles, replacing LeBron as his heir apparent. And they might, who knows what happens in that side, because you're right, James. It's going to be a big shift for them where I think radically LeBron and Luka are not compatible fits. I get LeBron was great in Miami as an off-ball player, but he's 40. He doesn't have the same athleticism to really make it work the way they once did. But for the Mavericks, you're going to spend the next 20 to even 80 years, the rest of my lifetime, they may never get a player as good as Luka. And during that duration of time, specifically these next 5 years, as they're trying to win now with this defense-first mindset, which I understand if you have a top 3, a top 5, top 7 player, which 80 is not that, but you're going to go all of those years continuing to lack the one thing. And I'm not going to waste my time saying it. You don't have a championship number one. It's just
the thing about, especially with the
believe it.
Lakers. The thing with the Lakers is that when you traded for AD, everyone's like, you expected multiple championships. You got one in the bubble. People like to just throw shade on that one anyway. So people like to discredit them a little bit because they only have one chip out of that anyway. Now, what you just did was you traded Lonzo Ball, BI, and Josh Hart for a championship and then Luka Doncic. That's basically what you just did. So right now, you just transition from Shaq to Kobe to LeBron to what should have been Anthony Davis, but now from Anthony Davis to Luka Doncic in a 20 when did Shaq get there? 96? 97, I think.
97.
Yeah, same year as Kobe. 96.
Yeah, 97. Yeah, 96, 97. So for 28 years, you have consistently had a top 5 player in the league on the roster. Maybe a given 3 or 4 out of those, maybe he was injured or he just wasn't at that level anymore. But you've had a consistent transition of power, and you just the one time the Lakers looked like they were in limbo, where once LeBron probably retires, you're gonna have a hard time figuring out what the hell you're gonna do, and you just handed them their way out. You just threw them the life preserver, or not even that. You threw them the last lifeboat that was on the ship, and you just went down with the Titanic. Like, that's just it. And that's the thing that gets on my nerves the most, is because no matter how hard the league tries to squeeze the Lakers, they find a way out of it.
I'm jealous. I'm genuinely jealous.
You get Dwight Howard. He's a he's a big ass, but you don't win anything. Guess what? 6 years later, LeBron's on the roster. You only had 6 years to complain for. You win a championship, LeBron. You're looking at it. Oh my God, we don't know what the future is after this. You go ahead and go grab Luka. You lose Shaq. Kobe doesn't look like me. For a couple years there, people were questioning if Kobe could really lead this team to a chip. You build a team around him. You win 2 chips with Kobe. It's just consistent. They're just consistently getting ways out that nobody else has it. They try to screw them with the Chris Paul trade, and then they still find a way out of this. Like, it's jealousy, and it burns my soul because I'm also the fan of a large market team that doesn't get these breaks.
Right. This is
something is happening. Something really off is happening. With
you want to know what?
Just there's something very fishy about this. I'm not going to be a conspiracy theorist right now.
Yeah,
but
the league needs ratings.
You're putting Luka
5 years old, Luka Doncic, top 5 player for the next 7-8 years. You don't, if you want to trade Luka, you don't publicly proclaim that. And then the one team you go straight to is
the
Los Angeles Lakers, the team that shouldn't have the flexibility to trade for a top 3 player, and you only take 1 first-round pick to get the deal. There's something's going on here. I'm with
you. There's no way this is straight up. Adam Silver made a call.
Yeah,
there's some sort of background influence. There has to be.
The NBA's been looking.
If I'm dead in the morning, guys, then you have your answer.
Yeah. I mean, the NBA's been looking for their heir apparent to LeBron for the last 5 years, and obviously, in the last couple of years, there's been so many different guys who have all had different claims, whether it's Ja, Ant-Man, Jokic, etc. But Luka going to the brand that the Lakers have, to me, it underscores that he is the new face. because this is what the NBA is going to push. And to build off that thought, James, I think that makes the most possible sense. There's no basketball principle to make this understandable. But from the league's perspective, it makes it very easy to see that they want Luka to be in the biggest possible market. And I know I've been talking a lot. This is truly one of those like mock trades that you'll see that like a Laker fan will cook up. Like, I'm going to give you 1 first-round pick, and then I'm going to get one of the craziest hauls that I can possibly get for a player who's way better than what I'm offering you. And I'm going to give you a protected first-round pick. And Jalen Hutchifino.
Is it protected?
I'm not entirely sure. And Jalen Hutchifino. Don't forget Jalen Hutchifino, who.
Oh my God! How could they give up Jalen? Oh my God!
And that's going to get you Luka Doncic. That's literally what we see for the longest time. Like, this is a terrible trade package. It's not going to happen. I mean, last night it happened. So
we'll never know the true storyline of this trade. I promise you that. We'll never know the true storyline. Feels like 1960s, 70s NBA, where every star just ends up on the Lakers, regardless of given circumstances, regardless of the actions and the competence of the Lakers organization. The Lakers got saved here. And as you mentioned, John, Luka Doncic is going to be the most pushed player to become the next face of the NBA going forward. And it felt like he was starting to slip out of that conversation the last couple of years. But now he's all the way back into that discussion. So that's also a very interesting nugget, which would influence why, for some reason, we just go straight to the Lakers. But
I think the league learned, especially with LeBron's first 7 years in Cleveland, with the malpractice that certain teams are willing to go to save them, especially small markets or mid-market teams, whenever they do get generational talents, just how hard they hold on to, just how scared they are to make certain moves, just so they don't rule. Because if they realize that if they do make a wrong move and this player leaves or they lose a player or something of that nature, they're never most likely not getting back to this point for another 10 years. So you're looking at in San Antonio right now where they're scared to trade Stephon freaking Castle for De'Aaron Fox next to Victor Wembanyama. So you can't even look at San Antonio right now and hope that maybe they'll build right around Vic so he can be the face of the league. The league needed to make a move that was going to guarantee them that you're going to have at least a big star that you can push for the next 10 years until they can force Victor Wembanyama to leave San Antonio or something. Yeah. They needed to make a move to get some ratings because things are dropping, and this was the best chance to. Because literally, the moment this move was made, soccer players, football players, every single basketball fan on the damn planet, people in government were all sitting around like, what the hell was this? So you just know just how big this thing was. And it's just like, there's no way there wasn't an inside call for this. Like, I understand there's always stupidity in this league. There's always a stupid trade. There's always, but nothing to this level. At least I think even those GMs that made those bad deals would even look at this and be like, okay, you are wilding. So right now, for me, it's just like there had to have been a call. There had to have been something. There's just no way. This feels like the ghost of David Stern came back and be like, hey, yo, Adam, you know what you got to do. Make that call. Rig this shit up. Let's go. Let's get this popping. We need some ratings.
Fair.
Who knows? I don't want to get in trouble for slander in the near future, so I'm not going to go too far into saying it's something rigged, but something doesn't add up. It doesn't. We can try to logically break this down, and I'm just going to say there's influences probably in every transaction that we never consider. We just think of one team and the other, and I think it's very possible to think this is just one of those deals that is more complex than that, and it's just a problem with the NBA. The NFL is so much more popular than the NBA, with Josh Allen in Buffalo, Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City, Joe Burrow in Cincinnati, and every time we have a young player on TV, we have Shaq calling him a lazy loser, and Chuck is just agreeing with him on TV. And it's like, we're wondering why these stars have to go to big markets. Look at Karl Anthony Towns. What was the narrative about him 1 year ago? It was people making fun of his voice, that he's soft, doesn't show up in the big moment, and now the media is completely setting him up. Because
were they wrong though? Were they wrong though?
I think it was exaggerated, but now it's exaggerated on the full other spectrum. Now it's like, is he a top 5 player in the league now? Like, what's going on? They're setting up Karl Anthony Towns, and the only change was he going to a big market. people acting like, oh, this is a different Karl Anthony Towns. I've watched Karl Anthony Towns for 10 years.
Yeah.
This
I
is the
know
same
what he is
player.
offensively. I know what he is offensively.
He dropped a 60 ball last year. We know what he can
Yeah.
do. Him offensively was never the issue. It was always the fact that people don't feel like he had the dog in him, and his defense was always mediocre. And it's the same thing here. He's just getting bailed out by the fact that they have really great perimeter defenders, so he looks a little bit better in the back end. But it's the same player I've seen every single year. It's like, for me, it's just whenever players go to a certain market, even for us as a Heat fan, the moment Jimmy Butler came here and he won, he made it to the conference finals one time. The moment we beat the Bucks, that first year in the bubble, the narrative on Jimmy changed immediately.
Yeah.
Immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Right there. So it's just like, yes, whenever you go to big teams, whenever you do go to big markets, they push you a little bit more. But to the point of Shaq and Chuck, that's why I do like the fact that they are getting rid of TNT. I do like the fact that they are moving them, because comparing to the NFL, whenever I try to get into football a little bit more this year, and when you watch those broadcasts, it's so much different. I enjoy listening to Tom Brady talk about other players because he actually gives people props.
Yeah.
He talks about how great they are. He gives you insight on the game. When you're listening to like either Reggie Miller or any of them on the mic, they sound garbage. The way they talk about these players, they sound bitter sometimes.
Yeah.
They
So
like
it's just-
what
you
they
need-
talk about. Okay.
Yeah, you just need a whole overall new product. And I think this signing of this trade, one, I agree it's an inside job, but I think this trade is just the start of a new shift, because ESPN getting rid of a lot of his shows, and moving towards more entertainment than it is actual information was going to tank this. So the fact that the NBA is seeing this, making the moves to get a large player in a large market, and moving around the broadcasting so that you at least have general good broadcasting and information and information from the people that are taught. I feel like genuinely we're just watching this is the first sign of the huge shift that's about to come with the way the league pushes itself, because they realized the old product just wasn't working anymore, because the old product was being carried by LeBron, and you got lucky enough that Steph went as nuclear as he did for a couple of years, because KD wasn't going to be able to carry that once LeBron got to this point, and he was supposed to be the next guy up. So you got lucky with Steph there, and now you see Luka here, and you were hoping he got to the finals, but you're realizing that it was a slow burn in Dallas. Because honestly, to be completely real, I didn't think he was going to win a championship in Dallas in the first place.
No.
But you had a chance. You at least had a chance. Now you don't.
It was the same way at Dirk for a long time. They lost in the 06 finals to the Heat, and a lot of people felt that they would never get back there. It took them 5 years, but they got back there one that
And
round.
it took him 5 years, and it took Dirk somehow just turning back the clock to 06 for a couple playoff series, because he never got back to that level after that.
Yeah.
So it took him rewinding the clock for a couple years there to get it.
Yeah, the NBA does have, I think, market positioning problems, and they become more apparent by the contrast of a small market star getting moved to a big market. I mean, Karl Anthony Towns goes from one of the most hated players in the league to one of the most I don't want to say one of the most overrated players in the league. And 1 year ago, people were fighting me because I said he's still a way better player than Alperen Şengün. And that was a problem to people. And now today, people are like, what? What are you talking about? He's top 6 player in the league now. And I'm like, no.
He's a top 3 center to people now for some reason. I don't know how. Last year, Bam, there were people arguing Sabonis over him. Bam was definitely over him. So
James, your mic went mute, by the way. You're good.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
Bam was over him at that point. So the fact that the shift came that hard for him, just by, to be honest, he was on a 20-game run there where he was having like 30 and 16 for a while. So I understand what people want to see, but it's just like I've seen this music before. The same thing with Sabonis this year. I know when this playoff comes around, you're gonna need to rely on these guys to still produce the same way they are. You're gonna have a rude awakening and be reminded of who these guys really are. And then that's what
he's an all-NBA player. He's not a top 5 player.
Well, he's an all-NBA. He's an all-NBA player this year. I can't lie. Yeah. He is an all-NBA player this year.
On a good year, he's an all-NBA player. That's never changed. He's always been a top 15 to 25 guy. That's never been different. It wasn't different 1 year ago. It wasn't different today. He's in a better position. He's healthier now, and he's playing his natural position offensively. Those two things help him a lot. But it's hilarious because nobody watches Karl Anthony Towns in Minnesota. They create these narratives. Nothing changes about him, and all of a sudden, the positives have been positioned. That's the issue with the NBA. Luka Doncic is going to be the most marketed player in the NBA in 2 years. And a year ago, it was like, is he the face of the league anymore? Just the NBA, they wonder why they'll never compete with the NFL. It's because only 5 markets matter. Only 5 markets matter. The NFL, 32 markets matter. So till the NBA figures that out, they'll never, ever, ever, ever touch the toenails of the NFL.
And I don't think 32 teams matter. I've been a Dolphins fan for way too long. They don't matter.
I hear about them more than probably the 18th ranked team in the NBA.
Yeah,
that's true too.
Kind of valid point.
So
I think it's a good transition to the trade deadline discussion that we had planned, because this trade we didn't expect like 12, 15 hours ago. And before that, we had an entire show planned with a couple of different trade deadline topics. And it's nice that we can finally uncover those now. But in the back of my mind, that's going to stay with me the rest of today, that Luka is a Laker. Laker fans, the luckiest fan base of all time. And especially for the ones who are dumping on him, my boy Drew, he is the biggest Laker fan I know. He is one of the biggest Luka Doncic haters I know.
Oh wait, okay, never mind. This may not be the worst trade ever because that Bucks Kareem to the that's another Laker trade. Never mind.
Yeah.
People say worst ever without any research of history. Kendrick Perkins said Karl Anthony Towns was the worst trade ever. Do you ever think a trade where Karl Anthony Towns is the best player would ever be considered the word worst trade ever?
James, let me be honest. I've never dubbed something the worst trade of all time. This is the worst trade I've ever seen in NBA history. I mean, very real.
I still think I think the Kareem one's worse. I'm with you on that.
I have a good point. What was the trade package for Kareem?
The Bucks didn't recover for 30 years. So yeah, I think the Kareem one is
Kareem Laker trade details. Because they didn't get any valuable players back.
Yeah, because Kareem literally was like, I want out, and I want out now, and I only want to go to the Lakers. The Lakers are the only team I want to go to, so don't trade me anywhere else because I'm not re-signing there. I want the Lakers. So they had no other reason to trade it. So they literally had to do it.
In 1975, the Lakers acquired Abdul-Jabbar and reserve center Walt Wesley from the Bucks for center Elmore Smith, guard Brian Winters, blue chip rookies Dave Myers and Junior Bridgman in cash. That's worse.
Okay.
I think
this is top 5 though. This is definitely top 5.
Oh,
people will be shocked. People will be shocked.
This is the worst I've seen.
People will be shocked. Like in our era, yes. Pre-modern era, there are worse.
I didn't think anything could beat Rudy's trade. 5 first-round picks since I didn't think any could beat that. But nah, we just keep finding a way to top ourselves. That's why every single year I'm just like, it doesn't matter what you think about your star or what draft capital you think you can get. Somebody is stupid enough to do something crazy.
Rudy
you just have to hope that you're the lucky one to benefit from it. That's why I'm sitting on my edge waiting for the Jimmy trade. I'm like, please tell me we're kicking up something insane.
All right, let's transition. You guys take the controller. What's the next topic?
Our next topic would be our De'Aaron Fox Sacramento Kings discussion. Whether or not the Kings, who have been really reported heavily the last week to be looking to deal De'Aaron, kind of resetting their timeline quite a bit, should be kind of looking to pursue a trade with De'Aaron, and maybe you get him into a contender, you get draft compensation, maybe a little more versatility, or if they should continue forward. This team is 24-24. They're 5-5 of the last 10. They've been a very average team the duration of the last 2 years. Mm-hmm. Even after moving on from Mike Brown and promoting Doug Christie to head coach, they've had obviously great stretches, 10-game stretches, but the question is whether or not the Kings should look to move De'Aaron, because this is a team that didn't make the playoffs for 16 years and has been historically one of the worst at rebuilding. Should they look to reset their timeline? James, what do you think?
Yes. I mean, I talked about it last week. No, not last week. We talked about it at some point in human history. The Kings right now are that kind of nerdy guy in high school who gets a girl a little out of his league and just holds on to her as long as he can. Doesn't matter how many times she cheats on him. Doesn't matter how many times she flirts with other guys. Doesn't prioritize him. He keeps holding on to her because he's too scared of the alternative option, which is letting her go and finding another girl. That's the Sacramento Kings. This team is built for mediocrity. And the Kings, it felt like they kept leaning into it the last couple of years because they haven't had any better the last 18 to 20 years. So we know the ceiling of a Domantas Sabonis, De'Aaron Fox tandem in the context of the West, in the context of the NBA. There's defensive limitations that'll forever be here. If you're a serious team about pivoting and giving yourself a chance to maximize your outcome, you can get a lot for De'Aaron Fox. You can get a lot for Domantas Sabonis, most likely. And
you have DeMar. You got DeMar there. You got Malik there. You got a lot of guys that you can move to rebuild nicely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so Sacramento, no question. If you can get a really good package for De'Aaron Fox instead of just settling for being at your ceiling, the 11th best team in the NBA, no question, you do it.
I just don't understand as to why people were so mad at me when I literally just said there's no other way you can look at this this Sabonis Halley trade and think the Kings did anything to win this. There's absolutely no way they won anything in this trade because if you're looking right now, people are like, you just want to give the fans something to hope about. What? You got 1 year where you got destroyed by Steph in the first round, and then you've been horrible since. You traded a great young star for a first round exit, and right now, you're looking at it. De'Aaron Fox is having genuinely the same year he had 2 years ago. People think it's a down year. It's the same numbers, same level of impact. It's just the team around him is worse, and everybody knows how Sacramento plays. They had enough time to adjust, so now people know how to actually play you. Domantas Sabonis is having the best year of his career. It does not matter. Those numbers, again, me and Josh talk about a couple times. They're inflated as hell. The numbers do not tell you how good that man is. Every single time he's been in the playoffs, he's gotten destroyed. That play style does not work. Everybody knows this. There's a reason why nobody else jumped at the chance to trade for him other than you. People know that was not going to work in the first place. Your best chance at the beginning was if you're going to trade Halley, you're going to trade him for a defensive big, genuinely a lob threat, and move shooters around De'Aaron Fox. So at least when he's able to get into the paint, he's at least has the ball in his hands to spray out. Now you put the ball in Domantas Sabonis' hands. You're forcing De'Aaron Fox to run the same DHO actions, and now he's living off mid-range jumpers and threes. He's literally living off that because Domantas Sabonis is clogging the paint the whole time. So he's living off those freaking jumpers, which is not the best part of his game. The way the team built is not great. The way the team plays is not great, and the players you have on there just aren't good enough. And everybody saw this coming except for you because you're constantly poverty and you don't know how to say freaking no. For one time, you just don't know how to say. So yes, please, for once, you wasted your time going to DeMar DeRozan, right? You don't have him for a full year yet. Let's do the right thing and realize that you're at your limit. You don't have to get rid of Malik Monk. Malik Monk is still kind of young. You don't have to get rid of him. You don't have to get rid of Kevin Huerter. You don't have to get rid of anybody else but that top three. De'Aaron, DeMar, and Sabonis. You can even keep one of them if you want. If you want to keep Sabonis, be my guest. But those two specific guards that do not fit well with him and this team, move them. Get as much draft capital. Get as many young wings and young players as you can. Build from there. Stop with this. Stop, because at this point, it's no longer experiment anymore. This shit blew up in your face. Stop. Yeah. Just please move on.
If I could show a 3-team trade that Romain was showing us before we recorded, you guys can see it fairly clearly. This is the type of trade for the Kings where if you're looking for the best De'Aaron Fox destination, it might just be the Heat alongside Bam Adebayo, his Kentucky teammate. It'd be nice if they can include Malik Monk to get the three of them all back together, but
we don't have the draft capital for that. Unless we include Khalil, that's not happening, and right. I don't want to do that.
And this type of package, Romain, I thought you did a great job because you're giving the Kings here a package that's worth their time. They're getting a nice crop of young wings with Jovic and Jaquez, and I'm not high on Jaime, but even if you're not, to get 4, maybe 1 more 5 first-round picks for De'Aaron, DeMar, and then you're getting a little bit of young talent to take on Beal's contract, I would think that's the best case scenario if the Kings want to take this path of, all right, we're going to rebuild and try to build around Sabonis with more wing talent, more perimeter defense. But at the end of the day, and I feel like this is kind of the rude reality, it's the Kings for the longest time had rose-colored glasses from 2023 to now because of their past. we understood that they're a slightly above average team. And when injuries come and they're not the healthiest team in the NBA, they're in a weak Western Conference 2 years ago, they're probably not going to be a top 4 seed again. But I still do believe there's something here with having De'Aaron and DeMontis generating a top 10 offense that I'm not totally against keeping them together and continuing to build and try to add as much to this young core, because you have Keon Ellis, you have Devin Carter, who in his minutes, I know he was hurt to start this year coming off surgery. They've both showed a lot. And I really like this young crop of guards and wings, especially with Keegan Murray being the biggest X factor here, how much he can come along. So I understand the Canes' logic to wanting to basically carry forward with this last year and try to win now, develop talent. So I can see them not want to make that big swing, because at the end of the day, De'Aaron is a relatively loyal player. I think his reputation's been somewhat damaged by him being in Sacramento, them firing their coach. A lot of people pigeonhole the blames on him. But to me, what De'Aaron's always struck me as is a quiet, humble star player who, in his best years, is going to be a consistent all-star. In the Western Conference, I know he wasn't able to make it, but to me, he is an all-star caliber player easily in the Eastern Conference if you move him there. So I'm not totally against keeping him for now, seeing basically how much you can upgrade the cast around them and then taking it from there.
But that just depends on how many years is left on his contract. I believe he's up for an extension.
Mhm.
So if right now, especially with who's representing him in the first place, whenever Klutch says, "Hey, you should probably trade that player," you should probably trade that player, because most likely what's going to happen is you're going to get left high and dry without him.
Mhm.
And I think you should, even if you don't trade it in the Heat, depending on where you decide to move him, you can. De'Aaron Fox is young enough; he's good enough that you're going to get significant compensation for him. Right now, it looks like he's right now. I think they said the two destinations he's looking at is Miami and San Antonio. Those are the two places he wouldn't mind going. The problem with San Antonio is, even though they have a mountain of picks, again, they're one of those smart market teams that, since they've been successful so long, they feel stuck in their way. I think they feel a little bit stuck in their ways. They feel like whatever they do always works, so they don't want to make certain they don't want to feel forced to do anything. And Vic is still very young, so they want to give the chance for this young core to build around. But at the same time, I'm looking at him like, there is no guarantee that Stephon Castle even gets anywhere near where De'Aaron Fox is right now. There's no guarantee he ever gets that good. Because, again, De'Aaron Fox, on a good year, just like Cat, he's an all-NBA player on a good year. You can't say that about a young player you're just watching that can't shoot that well, whose main great thing is that he's a really good perimeter defender, and he's a good rebounding guard. That's really all I've seen from him, and I'm watching him this year so far, and he can build on the other stuff. Keldon Johnson, I feel like you know what the peak is there. You know what the peak is there. Devin Vassell, again, you see what the peak probably is going to be there.
Mhm.
I don't see a way you can keep lying to yourself. So if I'm San Antonio, you have 7 first-round picks that are tradable. Please, if you're gonna try to build, use them. You're the 12th seed right now. Vic is about to win Defensive Player of the Year. He's about to be an All-NBA player in year 2. You can maximize the chance to have a championship window for him. For the next 10 years of his career, he could probably get you one. Please make the call. Get him a guard that can get downhill. A guard that can penetrate the paint. Chris Paul has taken 30 layups all year. He cannot get to the rim anymore. He simply cannot. Devin Vassell lives off mid-range jumpers and three-point shots. Again, you don't have anybody that can get downhill, get to the rim, spray out. You don't have anybody that can collapse the defense consistently. Please. Or collapse the defense and then know what decisions to make.
Mhm.
Please. Just make the call. Make the call. Right now, you didn't give him all 7. I'm pretty sure Sacramento would take 3. Three of those picks. Even just 3. Stephon Castle. I don't know who else you'd probably add into that. You could probably add another young player.
Plus 3 picks is a lot. I'm just going to say.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
It's a lot for De'Aaron Fox. I like De'Aaron Fox. That's a lot. It's a lot.
Stephon and 3. Yeah. The thing about it would be a lot. It would be a lot for a regular team, not a team like San Antonio that has a litany of first-round picks. Or if OKC was in a situation, it wouldn't be the same thing. Right now for OKC, I'm looking at them right now. Cam Johnson is right there. You need shooting. You have 12 first-round picks. Just throw 3 of them at Brooklyn. Go get Cam Johnson. You can lose them. It doesn't matter. That Mavs 28 max pick looks really good right now for anybody that wants it. Just Go make the move. You have a chance to win now. There's a lot of those small market teams that are just they're scared. And in the NBA, scared money doesn't make any money. You gotta be able to let your nuts hang. You gotta be able to just throw it out there and let it just make the move.
You know what team isn't scared of making big trades? It's a small market team.
T-Wolves.
Minnesota.
They've made some of the most polarizing trades in recent history.
I mean, the Butler trade, the Cat trade, the Gobert trade. They don't care. They're out there.
D'Lo was a big splash. That was the biggest move of the 2020.
I'm looking at it right now. Before Jimmy Butler tore his meniscus, you were the 3rd seed with that trade. That trade would have most likely worked out if Jimmy Butler was able to stay healthy in the first place. Rudy Gobert got you to the conference finals. You just ran into a generational talent. I'm so sorry. It just happens sometimes. But whenever Minnesota's made those moves, it's worked out in some level of success that they've never seen before that point.
Yeah.
Outside of KG. So it's worked out in a level where you see a level of success. For a small market team to win a championship, it rarely ever happens. I'm so sorry, but it rarely does. But the least you can do is you make the moves to try to be one of them that does it. There's no guarantee, but there's no guarantee that you're going to win it without making the move in the first place.
Yeah.
So just try.
Made the draft trade. They also made the biggest draft trade last year in the NBA.
Rob Dillingham?
Yeah, they traded up for Rob Dillingham. Yep.
Yeah. Rob Dillingham, in the minutes he's gotten this year, looks good. Again, scared money doesn't make any money. They're not scared, and they've seen some level of success. Now, Julius Randle, maybe the one time you probably did whiff a little bit.
I don't think they were going after Julius Randle on that trade.
They wanted to get off Cat's contract.
They wanted that, and they wanted Dante, and they wanted draft picks, and they got the Detroit pick, and that's likely conveying this year. So, yeah. They're a funny team to follow, but it's one of those hard things because you mentioned, and I agree, there's a degree, like just swing, take risk. I think San Antonio needs to make that type of trade in the next 2 years, definitely. It's funny. If they were smart, if they knew if Luka Doncic was available, I'm sure they would have given Dallas all 7 first-round picks. But
inside job, they didn't have a chance.
Something happened.
There's no way you're thinking about trading Luka. There's no way you didn't think about trading Luka and you didn't contact either OKC, San Antonio, or Houston. There's no way you didn't contact at least one of those.
Yeah.
It's too stupid not to make sense. It's like I had to do some political journalism on the side. Some things happen in this world, and you're just like, that's not what happened. I don't know what happened. That's not what happened. There's some inside job that happened there.
We're ripping Nico right now, but probably his hands were already tied. They already told him, you're making this trade and there's nothing you can do. So we're ripping him right now. He probably is just the scapegoat at this point.
I know. That's exactly. It's so strange. But back to the De'Aaron Fox point, it's like De'Aaron Fox, I think I totally agree. The downhill rim pressure potential, and additionally, a guy who's one of the 10 best clutch scorers in the league, that type of guy you want next to Victor. Now, if I'm San Antonio, I'm trying like hell to keep Stephon Castle because he's had an inefficient rookie year, but when you see the signs of what he can be as that rim attacker, it's significant. That burst, that change of speed, that balance, he's one of those dudes. If he broke out and became a 22-a-game guy by year 4, wouldn't be shocked. He has that.
Fox was a 25 per game player at year 4.
He's not making all defense. Stephon Castle might.
But again,
I think Stephon Castle could be as good as De'Aaron Fox. I really do. So I'm not dumping him plus 3 first-round picks when theoretically there's always somebody who comes available. Obviously, Luka Doncic was the recent one. There's always someone available, and De'Aaron Fox is really good. But he's one of those. He's really good, but there's always one who's better. So
very true. I understand that. It's just that right now with it's just Stephon Castle specifically being the one that's untouchable that grinds my gears a little bit. Because the thing about it is, De'Aaron Fox was looking the same way his rookie year too. The athleticism. At that point he had to play defense to be able to get minutes and be able to play well. So he was the people forget De'Aaron's first 2 years, they were looking at him as, oh my gosh, he could be one of the better 2-way guards in the league.
Yeah.
Then he became great offensively, and this team was all about offense. He stopped caring. It's what happens sometimes. But for me, is just that one, you don't get much better than De'Aaron Fox downhill rim pressure. Stephon Castle, there's a hard time believing he can get to that level of that, be able to get to the rim at that
He can
level.
get
De'Aaron Fox
downhill,
is,
he just can't finish
yeah,
well.
De'Aaron Fox is genuinely probably top 3. Maybe Ja. Who else? Or
Shea.
maybe one of the bigger wings.
I would
As a-
take De'Aaron above a Shea as a finisher, but
De'Aaron above
Hell
Shea?
no.
I don't know
Hell
about
no. As a finisher, hell no. Well, actually, never mind. Because Shea does
I'll
live in the
take
middle.
Shea.
I mean,
Shea does
you've
live in
seen
the middle.
De'Aaron shoot nearly 80% at the rim one season. 2 years ago.
Exactly. Yeah, 76.
To me,
76.
for maybe factoring Shea's size, that's a little bit different. I think it's easier for him. But in terms of the craftiness and his ability to get to the right angles, I would say
And the athleticism. Genuinely, probably sneakily one of the most athletic guards the league's probably ever seen, with
from
his
an
speed and jumping
efficiency
ability.
standpoint at the rim, that's where I stand with that.
Exactly. So it's hard to ever get to that level. And the fact of the matter is that especially with Sabonis last year, even when you had those shooters around him, when you watch them in the playoffs, De'Aaron Fox had to shoot a bunch of threes and had to take those mid-range jumpers because every single time there was 2 players in the paint. Draymond Green was not respecting a single jumper that Domantas Sabonis was taking. There was always 2 players in the paint. So it's hard to get there. With San Antonio, Vic is a legitimate 3-point shooter. You cannot have a big roaming in the paint with Vic out there. I think De'Aaron Fox get away. De'Aaron Fox, you'll see it's the same with Cat. You see an elevated level of De'Aaron Fox because he'll have more room to get to the rim in San Antonio because San Antonio has a big that isn't going to clog the paint constantly. And anybody else that's not a 7-footer or a great rim protector is not stopping De'Aaron Fox from getting a layup.
I got a mock trade for you guys. What I think would happen if a deal happened, I think this is the middle ground. I think the Spurs, and this is going to include Stephon Castle because I don't see how it doesn't, even though I would be hesitant. That's why I wouldn't deal 3 first-round picks plus Stephon Castle. But I do think the middle ground, I wrote it out. So it's on my tablet. So obviously the San Antonio Spurs get De'Aaron Fox. And then the Sacramento Kings, the 2 players they get, it is Stephon Castle, Keldon Johnson, Chicago's 2025 first, top 10 protected, and an unprotected 2027 Hawks pick. I think that's the balance. 2 first-round picks. If you're the Spurs, you don't give up any of your own picks, so you keep most of your flexibility. But also, that Hawks pick could be very valuable. That Chicago pick has protection, so it'll eventually convey. And you get Stephon Castle, who I think is one of the top rookie prospects long-term. And you get Keldon Johnson, who's kind of an empty burger type player, big nothing burger, but he still can score sometimes. So you get 2 NBA players.
He's the definition of empty stats to me. I'm so serious. Like
He's matching salary.
Yeah, big nothing burger. But yeah, I think that's the balance of you get multiple firsts. If you're Sacramento, you get a really intriguing young prospect, and you get a contract who could be in your rotation, who's young for the next couple years. If I'm the Spurs, I'm not giving up more than, definitely not for De'Aaron Fox. I'm maintaining that flexibility in Wemby's window until I need to give up something. I'm not rushing into De'Aaron Fox in the Wemby window.
You know who else had that thought process too, and then never did anything because nobody else actually showed up at that time that wanted to come to your team? Cleveland. The first 7 years of LeBron, they said the same thing every single time, and guess what they put around him? JJ freaking Hickson. That's it.
The execution is wrong, but then you also see teams that rush into trades 1 year early and they close their window. There's a spectrum of possibility.
But none of them had this level of talent. Nobody had that level of generational talent.
And if you have this level of talent, there is a certain amount of care you need to have with it.
I agree.
You can say the Cleveland Cavaliers, just because they were frugal with it, doesn't mean that the Spurs are going to operate exactly like the Cleveland Cavaliers. They have more than the Cavs had to play with at the time.
That's also true.
They have a more proven front office with a proven culture. I don't think it's a similar scenario at all, other than Wemby's the best prospect since LeBron.
But it just reminds me a little bit because Cleveland had the same opportunity, even though they don't have that draft capital. But they had a trade on the table to get Amari Stoudemire, and they said no because they were scared. Because they didn't want to lose their flexibility, and they're talking about free agency and all these, and then you end up losing LeBron. I feel like you're looking in the same situation where you have an opportunity to make a trade that can get you to that next level, to at least cement the fact that you're going to keep Vic for more than 7 years or 8 years.
What if you could do both? What if you don't have to give up over half of your trade assets?
That's a scared money. But that's a scared money. You don't even have to give up 3 first round. If you give up Stephon Kelsey, you probably can only give up 2.
De'Aaron Fox didn't even make the All-Star game in the West this year. Are we really going all in?
It's the West. It's full of
James,
guards.
I'm gonna be honest. You're. This is where I stand on it. I'm not the biggest Stephon Castle guy on the offensive end, but I will look at that piece as a prospect. And I will say, if you're giving him up in a De'Aaron trade, immediately the draft compensation you get becomes little to almost none, in my opinion, because De'Aaron is, yes, he's not necessarily an established, consistent all-star, but he's that caliber of a player, even if he's not making the game.
Sure,
he's that in a different conference.
But if you're giving up Stephon Castle in that trade, I'm not giving up 2 first-round picks. I'll give up 1, and if that's too much or if that's not enough for the Kings, then so be it. I like to let Castle develop before I move him so early because, like you highlighted, I see a lot of Drew Holiday in there, and obviously that's not championship number 2. But if I'm giving that piece in this deal, I would much rather give you Jeremy Shohan and 2 first-round picks than say Castle and a multitude because that being said, I would rather have Castle long-term than Shohan, and I don't think the 2 really are compatible fits on the offensive end.
But at that point, if you're gonna nitpick with who you want to give up or the picks you want to give up, you're gonna find a team that's gonna jump in and take that from you every single time. And then the big one is gonna come along where you're like, okay, now we're ready to make this big trade for this guy, and then somebody else gonna come along that's gonna give more than you are willing to, because there's still teams with more draft capital than even San Antonio. Sure. So the thing about it is like, if you're not willing to swing on the small piece right now to build because you're worried about what else you can do for somebody bigger later. But then again, there's other teams that are waiting for that bigger fish that have more draft capital and have more assets to make that swing. OKC right now, at any point, and any one of those young players that gonna have to, because they can't pay anybody, they have more than their draft capital for the next 10 years to still be consistent as long as they have Shea, J-Dub, and Chet. Yep. Every single time. Houston has enough picks and has enough young assets that at any point, any big star comes available, they're gonna beat out whatever you get to offer to any other team. So you got to look around the competition you have right now versus what you can do. And Vic in year 2 is good enough that I believe if you get De'Aaron Fox right now in year 3 or 4 of Vic, you can look at the fact that, hey, what team is really competing with this right now?
I will say,
it's just right now. I don't
think you're wrong. There's a balance here, but John, you can continue.
I will say De'Aaron Fox to me can be a championship number 2 alongside Wemby.
Exactly. That's what I believe too.
Because he's always needed that defensive anchor alongside him, and you highlighted perfectly, Romain. Offensively, Wemby would elevate De'Aaron. Now, I would like to see De'Aaron be a better 3-point shooter if he's going to be off the ball more. I think that's the only concern with the move. But everything else I love from the standpoint of in their 2-man game, I mean, to contain Fox one-on-one while giving him that lob radius that Wemby has, it would elevate him as a playmaker. And then, of course, as a scorer, life would be a lot easier to me than him and Sabonis together.
Yeah, because you can't play against that pick-and-roll combo. You can't play drop because that's giving Vic an open 3-point shot every single time. And Vic is shooting, 37% from out there, and he's taking a lot of them.
35. Last time
35. So above league average, and he's taking a decent amount of them. You can't give up that shot every single time to Vic in the first place. So you're gonna have to play at the level, or you're gonna have to switch that pick and roll, and that's when it becomes even worse for you. Right now, I just see right now where De'Aaron Fox is the guard available right now. There's not a lot of guards in the league that's better than him that I'm seeing that's most likely going to be available after a couple of years. I'm looking at it right now. The only guards I can think that's above him right now, Steph is nothing's going to happen. He's staying in Golden State, retiring there. Ja's not leaving Memphis. Memphis knows how to freaking build. So he's going to be on a winning roster for most of his career. Even if he doesn't win a championship, he's going to be consistently win. Jalen Brunson, again, he's taking less money to stay in New York to help them win. There's not a lot of guards that are better than De'Aaron that are going to be available long term, unless somebody else explodes on the scene and then wants to leave their team.
And that always happens in the NBA, by the way. I think there's 2 sides here. One, when you have this type of prospect and you have over 7 picks to trade and you have multiple good young prospects, never go to the grocery store hungry. They don't need to yet. They don't need to yet. So all I'm saying is put a cap on what you would trade for De'Aaron Fox. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm not going to Stephon Castle 4 first. Here, take it. I think he's a number 2. Oh my
I'm
God.
not saying I'm not saying
that's nuts. That's
That
nuts.
is
You don't do
I
that.
understand.
When you have a superstar, it's sensitive. You're competing with OKC, like you said. You're competing with Houston, like you're saying. So why are you dumping everything to get De'Aaron Fox of all people?
I'm not saying I'm not saying dump everything.
That's
but
crazy.
Stephon Castle with 2 first-round picks. If that gets it done, you make that move.
It's the Native American in me, man. I'm part Native American, so I turn red super easy.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So
Yeah, if you get if Stephon Castle 2 first-round picks, or if Stephon Castle, Julius Champagnie, and 2 first-round picks gets it done, you make that move. You don't sit there and finagle. I mean, maybe we want the extra first-round pick, or because later down the line, maybe this guy's available. Stop it.
Right.
There's so many different teams that have been in your position. Again, Minnesota was in the same position with KG and they decided to not make the move. KG won them 56 games and then left because you didn't want to make the move to build a consistent team. It happens. The way you guys are saying it right now is we've seen teams when they get generational talents do the same thing like this over and over, and it's blown up their face every single time. When you decide, hey, I want to wait a little bit, let things play out, let this develop, give myself a chance, that chance never comes back around. It always, for some reason, blows up in their face.
I have a point.
You can mishandle it, but you can play calculated odds. And sometimes calculated odds don't go your way. And De'Aaron Fox is still a calculated risk. We haven't seen him go deep in the playoffs yet. We haven't seen him prove to be a clear-cut top 15 player. I really like De'Aaron Fox. I'm saying he's a player I would trade a lot for. He's not the piece when I build up 7 first-round picks and I try to get this ultimate rebuild with the best young prospect ever, arguably, in a league when you're competing against OKC and Houston. I'm not going to jump at the first star who says yes. I'm not going to jump at the first girl who says she likes me. That's what this is. The Spurs have set themselves up to be one of the 5 best situations in the NBA. So when you're in that type of position, you're operating from a position of strength. So keep your strength. It doesn't mean that you don't trade for De'Aaron Fox. It doesn't mean you play with your food. There's a balance on this. You don't play with your food like you're saying. I don't think it's playing with your food to say, I'm going to give up most of my picks and the top prospect for De'Aaron Fox, when even though those 2 would be deadly, I still don't know if that's enough. So,
but we're saying 2 first-round picks out of 5.
I said 2 first-round picks.
Yeah. And I agreed with you. If you're including Stephon Castle, okay, 2 first-round picks.
If you're including Castle, 2 first-round picks max. I can't get more than that. I would be like,
I'm okay with that. But if that's the limit and they agree to it, hit that trigger, please.
But the reason why it's 2 first-round picks though instead of 1, John, is because it's other teams' first-round picks.
Yeah.
So this stipend rule doesn't apply in that situation, which is why I'm cool with dealing 2 first-round picks in that scenario. But once you get to 3 to 4 plus Castle, who might win Rookie of the Year, even in a weak rookie class, that's when it's like, okay, De'Aaron Fox is really good. I mean, a really good comp would be for a De'Aaron Fox trade, the Jimmy Butler trade 7 or so years ago. What was included? It was Zach LaVine, the number 7 overall pick, Chris Dunn, who was the 5th pick a year ago, and
they got Justin. They got the 15th pick, which is
16. Yep, 16, which they took Patton.
There you go.
And then Jimmy Butler. So I mean,
oh my God, OKC has 30 picks in the next 6 years. What the hell?
They get Castle and Zach LaVine in this trade, basically. And Fox is a similar valued player to Butler, even though Butler was a better player at that age than De'Aaron Fox.
I think to wrap a bow on that, you're both right in different ways. But ultimately, I think where it stands is that the Spurs just need to be calculated with the moves that they make. Because if they're impulsive and, like you said, jump on the first move, they may miss out on something better. But they also shouldn't leap to overpay. I think kind of being protective of a guy like Castle, because to me, I feel like the efficiency has been putrid, especially the three-point shooting this year. But that's something that I do believe will get to league average. And everything else in this game will make him like a perfect starter alongside Wemby. And the flashes have been there all season long. Just he pops off the screen. And I really do believe that that's the type of piece that the Spurs want to retain.
John,
I'd rather trade Shohan.
John, they have 12 first-round picks till 2020. I mean, till 2030. What are we doing, right? They have 12. They have 4 in the next draft.
But my point is, if you're giving up Castle, I'm not giving you more than 2 first-round picks.
Oh no, I understand that. But I'm just saying, like, even if it is other teams, you give that Charlotte one, you give the Chicago one that I think is top 10 protected. Maybe that doesn't convey this year; it goes to next year. Either way, you have 12 of these things for you have 12 of these things for
I guess.
seven.
Yeah,
You have 12 of these things for the next 5 years.
Mhm.
2 of them ain't gonna kill you.
Yeah, it's when you get to 4 is when I'm like 3 to 4.
3 is
like
too
if
much.
you, that's when I'm not dealing 4 for Fox. You know, that's
And right now,
Plus,
if I'm keeping
player.
Castle, I'll trade 4. If I keep Castle, I'll trade 4.
Would you guys
and if
say
this-
De'Aaron Fox a top 30 player?
Yeah,
yes,
He's in there,
25.
but it's like narrow.
yeah.
There's a lot of
I think him having a down year. I think not even Sacramento itself having a down year, dropped his stock a little bit. But that first year when they were going toe-to-toe with the Warriors, where he was averaging 30 against them, and the only reason why they didn't win that series is because he got hurt. So those again, he's a lot better than people give him credit for right now. Because we've seen him in the playoffs before. I guess the Warriors team was a top 10 defense that year, and he was still averaging 30.
Yeah.
I actually have
He's a good
De'Aaron
player.
in my
He's a
top
good player.
25.
I think he's a better player than John Morant, by the way.
No,
So.
I do not. I do not.
I can't go that far.
Yeah,
I'm
Josh
I'm
having a
not
down.
there yet. I'm not there.
Josh
yet.
having a
Josh
down
Josh
statistical
Longford.
year, but outside of that, nah.
Playoff draw, that's where I'm like, we got.
Yeah, I've seen whenever I've seen Josh drop 40 in the playoffs consistently.
Sure.
can't-
I will say though, Romain, and this
Same
is something
job.
we saw that with Jalen Brunson. People after his first breakout season in New York were saying, "I'll take Brunson over De'Aaron." I was like, wait one more year before you say that. Then a year later, I was like, okay, that's fine. I agree. Now Brunson to me is the better player, but like his first year at the Knicks, I'm like, I think it's premature because people have always been kind of back and forth with Ja. I feel like I've been even keel. To me, he's still a top 20 player in the game.
I'm a hater.
I'll stay that way until he shows me in the playoffs that he's not that player he's been. Because outside of Anthony Davis, there's been no one's been able to stop him.
I worry about his long.
Ironically, we're going to shit on
And even
AD, but-
even then, Anthony Davis was only able to stop him because he hurt his hand.
well, he was struggling before the hand injury that game one, but it was only one game. So
Yeah.
it is funny how we're dumping on AD, but I feel like it was less to do about the player and more about the foresight. And then now we're praising him as the only guy who could stop John Morant, but neither here nor there.
By the way,
Nobody's saying AD's bad. AD's an All NBA player right now. He's an All NBA second team player right now, in my opinion. Right
Yeah,
now,
I'm with that.
that's not the point. It's the fact that you gave him All NBA first team player. For him, you give for him that's 7 years younger.
Yeah, that's the problem. Totally. I got another mock trade for you guys, by the way.
Let's hear it.
Let's hear it.
So obviously the big name at the deadline that isn't a star is Cam Johnson, right?
Mhm.
So Orlando can't shoot right now. They can't shoot right now. And Franz Wagner and Paolo Banchero are literally colliding in every half-court offensive possession. So what if Orlando jumps in and says, we'll get Cam Johnson, who fits with their size and length and just the identity they want to build around those guys?
Right.
So here's the trade. The Magic trade Cam Johnson to the Nets for Cole Anthony, Jet Howard, and a Denver 2025 first.
No, they can
like
get right now. OKC needs. The thing about it is you have to look. You have to look at who you're gonna have to beat out for that trade. And right now, there's another team out there that's trying to contend that needs shooting badly that has 30 first-round picks.
They also have to actually trade a player that they value. I was looking at their.
Aaron Wiggins just dropped 41. So
Aaron
Wiggins just dropped 41. Are they going to trade Alex Caruso already? I mean, that's like the easiest money match. So there's a couple things OKC has to figure out because the roster. I mean, now you have Hartenstein making that money. You have Lou Dort making 16. Lou Dort is the closest salary match. Are you trading Lou Dort for Cam Johnson?
No.
Yes.
No.
I'm not. I would
Lou Dort,
be more tempted to trade Caruso.
I believe you haven't.
I would trade Caruso right now, but Caruso might be the most overrated.
Is Lou Dort their best perimeter defender, or is Caruso their best perimeter defender?
I'd say
Dort. I would take
Yeah.
Dort.
Really?
In
This year.
past years, I would say Caruso. This year, I'd take
Yeah.
Dort. But let me say this. If I'm the Magic, getting Cam Johnson's nice, but he's going to come off the bench with how much wing talent we have in the starting five. The swing to me is getting a shot creator in the backcourt. And I've sung this player's praises for, I don't know, 3 years since he's broken out, since he's got an opportunity. That's Anthony Simons.
I knew you were
Anthony Simons needs to go to Orlando because they have the perfect infrastructure for him to thrive while being one of the neediest teams for his skill set. This year's been the resurgence of offensive-centric, score-first, undersized guards. We've seen it. Tyler Hero, all-star, deserved. And there's so many other guys like Darius Garland, and he's more than just a score-first player. All of these smaller guards who have really been offensive first, they've had Jordan Poole's the best example. They've been really on the rise this year. And I felt for Ant Simons, he's never been a number 1 or number 2, obviously, but can he be number 3 alongside Franz and Paolo? The Magic have been struggling. I think they're 2-8 in their last 10, even though they had a great win versus the Pistons last time we recorded. Since then, they've been on the skid. That team needs to make a win-now move to get shot creation on the perimeter, and they don't have it. You get him alongside Jalen Suggs and you move KCP at the 6-man spot. You have the perimeter defense. You have the size and the versatility. You have Batatse at the 5. I like him more than Wendell personally. There's so much the Magic can offer for him to be kind of shielded defensively, but then his strengths as a elite shooter with awesome burst and the ability to separate at any given moment and get good quality looks, that's something they desperately need to close games. You get that, I truly believe that the Magic could win a playoff series this season. But if they don't, it's really hard to look at that being a viable threat to a team like the Bucks or the Knicks right now.
What does Portland do at the deadline now? Because they're starting to figure some things out. I mean, their last 12 games or so, they're well above 500. Scoot's playing great. Anthony's playing well. I mean, it's not – Portland's a weird bad team because they're more talented than a bottom tier team. They're not a perfect team. They don't have elite top-end talent. But, I mean, Sharp is good. Scoot is good. Ayton and Grant, they're starting caliber. Anthony's starting caliber. It isn't what's going on in Brooklyn. And they're starting to win now. So
yeah, and shout out Denny.
Denny's awesome.
Yeah, Denny and Clinton.
Yeah. So they have a lot of good players, and they're starting to win some.
They just need to move Simons to a spot where, like, because it's not the ideal fit at this point with Scoot and Shane having to develop.
And Scoot needs to be able to have a consistent starting spot because he's been showing that the flashes we saw in the G League, it's there. It's just that he needed some time.
Exactly.
But right now, one of the other trades I have right now, I had it before this because I knew the Lakers needed a center, but now this probably would be the best move they can make since now Austin Reeves is now very expendable. Rui is most likely expendable, and they still have 2 tradable first-round picks. And Indiana has been talking about trading Miles for 5 years now. It's about time. And they have the draft capital. They have the young talent to do it. It just matters. It doesn't make sense for Indiana, or right now with Indiana when they're looking at the current structure of their team. They can't win now with what they have. They really can't. They need to make some type of move going forward somewhere. And I do believe most likely moving off Miles, and most likely trying to rebuild around Tyrese and Pascal, because I don't think the team right now specifically fits them. The offense running up and down is great right now, but you don't have the wing depth, and you don't have the defenders around you to really make this team work.
Yeah.
What's your trade?
Huh? Right now is Rui and the 2 first-round picks that they do have available to trade if they're willing to move those for Miles. But also they do need to cut $2.9 million in salary to make that. So right now you might as well throw in Jackson Hayes to at least they also get another big to probably move into that place as well. And right now with the way the league is moving about it, might as well make the call to make sure the Lakers go win a championship this year, because it seems like we're moving to make sure the Lakers are in at least contention for the conference finals for some reason. I don't know why. Or they've been feeding for a Lakers Celtics finals for the longest, and they feel like they're trying to push for it as hard as they can.
That's valid.
No, absolutely. Interesting idea, and I think that's a good way to end the show with the trade deadline looming. We'll have another episode coming next week. I'm not a betting man, but I'll guess there's not going to be a bigger trade than what happened with the Lakers and Mavericks. Just an inference, but yeah.
You don't think Denver's going to trade Jokic?
Oh man, you never know at this point. Maybe they'll trade him for Bam Adebayo. But all right, guys. Well, thank you guys so much. Romain,
real quick.
Thank you for being.
Romain, let them know where you can find you. Get more of your work.
It's just FLB on YouTube. Again, I haven't uploaded in like 9 months. Okay, you can go back to the catalog.
Yep.
I have a couple evergreen video, timeline videos, and things of that nature that you can probably look at, see my work if you like to. We are getting back into it next season. Right now, I just had to take some off time because I had to finish school and I have a new job. But my schedule gets fixed this summer. So next season, we back on it.
Let's go.
So right now, you can go check that out at FLB.
A lot of good
I think-
evergreen content.
Yeah,
Lot
we
of
capped out. I think we capped out like 6K. Capped out at 6K, and then I stopped. So once we get back
Working.
into it, I'm gonna try to get back to because the schedule before was 3 videos a week. I'm gonna
Mhm.
try to do 2. I'm not trying to push myself too far. Just try to get back into it the way I was before. But yeah, FLB on YouTube. Check out some of those. I think the evergreen ones are the ones I have pinned.
Yes,
The
sir.
Jokic one and the Heat
Definitely
timeline
will.
one are the 2 ones that you can definitely go check out. That are I would agree those are my best work.
I'm with you. That's just from bar for sure. Thank you.
And thank you for being our first guest today, Romain. We'll
No
hopefully
problem.
have some.
On short notice too, Luka trade last night. He was the first one in here.
Oh yeah.
I needed somebody to talk about this with too, because
Thank
I was screaming on the phone with a couple of my friends and was like, "This makes no. I need somebody else that pays attention to the league as much as I do, that we can talk about this with. Because anybody else I talk to, they have no idea what the reasoning is behind this.
Yeah.
They think it's some other conspiracy theory, or they just don't know what they're talking about. So I'm like, I need to find somebody that at least has some knowledge of what's happening in the league, and this is the best place. John gave me the invite. I took it immediately.
Awesome. That means a lot, man. And you were great today. And
Absolutely.
hopefully we'll have some other fantastic guests in the near future as well. And thank you guys so much. This was episode 13 of Objectively Biased, and we'll see you next week.